Do you ever want to play Doom 2016 but you don't want to download it? Well, you might say, why not play Doom Eternal? Well, I personally like Eternal, so I'm gonna go with the Doom game we never got, Ultrakill. This game contains scenes of explicit violence and gore. Well, with a name like Ultrakill, you definitely better. As someone who thinks that mobility is the key to a good game, I think I have some experience when I say that good movement shooters are very far and few between. And if that's your jam, then you're mostly limited to Doom and Quake if you're ancient enough to have played that. And, well, yeah, but unfortunately no one plays it. I don't know what New Blood has been doing up until now, but they definitely caught my attention with this one. Ultrakill is a first-person arena movement shooter. If you haven't noticed through the gameplay or through me talking, this is a Doom/Quake clone, with some Devil May Cry style meter stuff in it. But it's certainly not a bad combination, don't get me wrong. Ultrakill is a game that was clearly made for and by fans of these games. There are few games that I can say that have made such a good first impression. This is most certainly one of them. And with that said, spoilers, because even though the story is basic and really not worth much, exploring the combat for yourself might be a bit better, as I will spoil some of its brilliance. Ultrakill is a more modern take on a boomer shooter, and for those who are unaware, a boomer shooter, according to the Urban Dictionary, is described as a first-person shooter game made in the 1990s, or such a game released that it is characterized by the same conventions of that time. Examples can include Wolfenstein 3D, Doom, Doom 2, Hell on Earth, Doom 64, Duke Nukem 3D, Shadow Warrior, Blood, Quake and Quake 2, and Dusk, which was another game made by New Blood. Now, taking one look at this game, it is very clear that it took heavy inspiration from these games and definitely modernized an otherwise lost form of shooter. Now, I am the product of the Wii generation, so this game was kind of my first introduction to boomer shooters, which I not only noticed was a visual choice, but it also seems to focus more on raw combat that carries a large amount of technical depth that makes otherwise primitive mechanics more interesting to play around with in the long run. Also, please note that this game is in early access, so it only has 23 total levels, but I can assume that this will likely double when the game is done. But unlike most other early access games, this still provides enough content to warrant giving it a try in its current state. In Ultrakill, you play as V1, a killing machine powered by blood. As stated in the intro, it says, blood is fuel and hell is full. As V1, you'll be plummeting down the layers of hell, and if you haven't guessed it, Ultrakill is New Blood's take on the divine epic poem Dante's Inferno, but with a dark cyberpunk theme to it, and blood. Lots and lots of blood. Now, normally I would go into the combat, but looking at the gameplay, I think you could get a pretty good idea of what that's like, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. It's fast, everything comes at you at full force, and you are just forced to deal with it. First thing to note is that this game does not have ammo. All of your guns have an unlimited ammo pool or a recharge. This means two things. One, you no longer need to save your ammo for your favorite gun because of a fear of not having it when you need it. Meaning you can go ballistic all the way through with your favorite guns and all. And two, it also means that the level design no longer needs to accommodate for ammo drops lying around. So it definitely looks a lot more clean. Along with that, you also find a lack of health packs everywhere. This is because, like the game said, blood is fuel. And this is no exaggeration, as you heal solely by soaking in the blood of your enemies. This game adopts a saying, the best defense is a good offense, because in a pinch, your best option is to get up right in their face and unload 2 shells of lead into their guts. I love this mechanic, because while in other games you would be cowering to regen back to full health, here, you can just go for a Hail Mary and hope for the best. It forces you to stay in the action all the time, which is only helped by the tight level design. The weapons themselves only aid this. Each one is heavy and has multiple variants. If you don't like the charge shot for the revolver, then switch to the marksman, which, by the way, is the coolest thing ever. You can flick a coin into the air and shoot it to home in on an enemy. Herb Messiah actually did an in-depth video on the ins and outs of this gun, because it is very breakable, and I do recommend that if this is something that interests you, that you go and check him out. I think that this is one of the great things about this game as a whole. It is really just a combat-centric sandbox game. It invites you to do whatever you want and do whatever you can to break it. One prime example of this is, and I wish I was making this up, you can punch your own shotgun bullets as they're leaving the barrel to make them explosives. The combat is completely balanced around these small arenas and hypermobility. Swapping between weapons and managing your cooldowns while running circles around the enemy creates a gameplay loop that makes you feel like a badass. But it's also 100% ready to beat you down a few levels to put you in your place if you get careless. Even on the easiest difficulty, the game is still capable of humbling you. Simply put, this game gets hard, especially if you're going for the perfect rankings in all the levels. Moving on, movement is key, and in a game like this, having your movement blend into the combat is really important. While this game doesn't offer anything particularly special, it is all very, very fast. Your dashes have basically no cooldown, and wall jumping is seamless and necessary. You can also slide indefinitely, but you can jump out of said slide to gain more momentum. And after the first few levels, it's easy to think that you're basically a professional speedrunner because at no point does this game stop you. It's go, go, go the whole way through, and that makes replaying levels, either for ranks or just to crush demons for fun, an exhilarating experience. Seriously, once you get good, it feels like you're injecting octane directly into your bloodstream. The level design also does nothing but aid this. Each level is short and compact. While the level designs themselves are kinda bland and nothing special, they are a dream to zip around in. They give you just enough space to do all your fancy movement, while also keeping you in harm's way of all the hordes of demons and angels alike. Oh yeah, I don't know if I mentioned this already, but this is still a Doom clone, cause just like Doom, each level is jam-packed with secrets. One of them even gives you an ultra powerful revolver that's slow but packs a magnum-sized punch. You do get a grappling hook, but you get this in the last level of the early access build, so it's not yet clear on how this will be used in future levels. Testing it out on enemies has proven to be quite the time, so I do have high hopes for this in the future. Each level brings with it a new set of enemy combinations and different flavored boxes to fight in. So a new enemy or mini-boss is introduced every 2 levels or so it never gets stale. And at the end of each world, or in this case each level of hell, there is a real boss. Now, I thoroughly enjoy the combat, but the bosses are pretty hit or miss. They are probably the weakest part of this game. Gabriel and V2 are very, very good fights. They definitely humble the player in the midst of their murderous rampage, but the same cannot be said for Midas and this scorpion-looking thing. The Midas fight in particular doesn't seem to fit the rest of the game, which is kinda disappointing since you do actually see him basically stalking you throughout the entirety of the Lust levels. V2, on the other hand, is amazing. Now, I'm biased on fights against mirror versions of yourselves. I've never really been a huge fan of them, but I really, really like this fight. This dude really shows how all the other demons feel because this guy will wreck you. Now, I think it's time to adjust the big ol' survival game killer on the Steam page, Early Access. Listen, how you spend your money is ultimately up to you, but this is definitely worth the $20 price tag. Right now, it might not have all of its levels, but I think it's made up exclusively by the cyber grind. This is a wave-based mode where the stage will morph after each wave. It gets hard fast, throwing mini-bosses at you left and right, and you're not just going for personal bests, there are global and friend-wide leaderboards. This alone makes it worth the price. Real multiplayer has always been king, but just being able to compete against everyone else and see where you rank in the world is really satisfying. Plus, there's also a sandbox mode where you can basically do whatever you want. You even get a familiar locale to play around in. Also, the soundtrack is amazing. It's a beautiful mix between electric and heavy metal, and it fits the themes of this game perfectly. So what are you waiting for? If any of id Software games interest you, then you need to get this. But if you're gonna wait till it's out of early access, that's also totally a good choice too. That was my plan originally. Keyword there, originally. But I'm glad I didn't. This game's a blast. Thank you all for joining me on this trip to Robo Hell and back. If you like what you see, then maybe like and subscribe, or leave a comment to tell me how you thought of the game. But with that said, I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you all on the next video.